you begin?
And wait, let me turn off the camera, my camera. And I think so. Check.
It's still not, yeah,
Yep.
it's live.
So let me go
So,
here. Okay.
our image is not still there, but I imagine that soon. There. Okay, we can begin, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, everybody out there. I'm Gina Olivares from Byteflows. We haven't been doing this for a while, and with this situation that is a worldwide situation with the pandemic, we decided to do it, to bring it up again, the seminars, to have a contact with people who is interested in what we do and the things that we work on. And yes, I think it's a very important situation at the world level. Right now, I'm in Mexico, and Andy is over there in New York in our not in our headquarters in his apartment
Yep.
because of the lockdown. So Andy,
Hello,
Andy Sheku,
Gina.
how are you?
Good. Uh, yeah. So well, adopting. For sure.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if you feel it. For us, it's not that hard because we are used to work from home.
From home. Yeah. Yeah. I'm writing
But
tips for other people who are working from home.
yeah, one of the tips that you discovered that I gave it to you, I feel very proud,
Yeah.
is about the coffee
The
maker,
coffee.
but we can
Yeah.
talk about it later.
Yeah.
How's the situation over there in New York?
It's bad actually. It's pretty serious. Like the probably at any moment you might hear it's a little bit more distant, but the sirens in New York, the ambulance sirens are pretty much nonstop. Like day and night, like that's basically all the everything in the background that's been going on. And we're not even at the peak yet, so we still have like a few more weeks. But uh, yeah, it's between that and so yeah, then having a lot of people like working from home, but also that's the human toll, and then there's also an economic toll. So like we
Yeah,
also would like wanted to touch a little bit on that. Uh, so as far as like the stock market and companies kind of trying to be a little bit more lean in these times. The idea that we wanted to cover a little bit today, and then we will have a few more sessions moving forward. It's how to use technology, how to use data science, how to use machine learning to be more productive, or how to do more with less. Basically, that's the
yeah,
idea.
exactly. Yeah, and basically, I'm since we do these seminars, right? We always talk about the data and the importance of the data, and a lot of people, the general public, who is not very interactive with this kind of with the work that we do. Right now, it's really important because the data is the thing that keep us going, right? The statistics and the projections and there's a lot of, for example, YouTube channels that are broadcasting how the epidemic is keep growing all over the world, like 24 hours. So it is very interesting in that sense.
Well, but it's
And
also like
for
if you
us,
look at the data, it's also like how to use the data to drive public decisions.
exactly.
So that's very important. Like in New York, we've been very
Ex-
lucky to have so the governor, and you're going to see this from state to state, to state.
uh-huh.
Uh, but before, so getting an idea on the model, so they moved very in New York. They moved quickly in building the predictive models to get an idea of like how many beds you're going to need, and so that you can prepare ahead of time. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to get the exact number of
Yeah.
beds, But how do you do that? You start testing people, and then based on the number of tests, you get an idea like how many people will need to go to the hospital. And you like, this is very important, and I think New York has been ahead in this sense.
Yeah.
But looking at other places, I don't think they are as prepared because they don't have that data. They don't have the tests. They have no idea what is going on. So like you have cases like New Orleans that all of a sudden like is spiking, and they just like came out of nowhere. So here it's going to be bad, but like at least like you know that it's going to be bad, so you kind of like start
Well,
preparing for it.
I know what you mean. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm in Mexico, and yep, no, we are not prepared.
I mean, it's
Right?
not just Mexico, but like even the U.S. was behind in general, but it's kind of like catching up. But you still have places like New Orleans. That's a classic case
Yeah.
where they had no idea, and all of a sudden you have like thousands and thousands of cases, and then you have to like rush into like building things. So like understanding, like getting the data to drive decisions. So there's a few things they do with the data, right? So like one is to help you, like in this case with the public policy. In
Mm-hmm.
the business sense, it's also resources. How do you allocate resources? So like the case that when we talk about the insurance companies, uh, how to allocate resources to improve the ratings, the quality incentives, and so on. But again, it's based on the model, and it's not perfect, but it gives you an idea of like where you should move your resources. Another thing that is important is for automation. So there's two
Yeah.
parts that we do. Like the first phase is usually automation. Mostly, like in this case, we'll focus on like small to mid-sized companies where you have incoming data, and then you put together a report, and there's a feedback loop between like entering the data, putting together a report, sending it to a third party, and then maybe getting on a call with a third party to hash out any discrepancies.
Yeah.
So it falls under automation, and we wanted to go a little bit through so where automation is now versus like humanity. We've always had some automation innovation moving forward. So in this case, like the invention of the wheel, it's a big it's automation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it began like that. I mean, it didn't begin like that exactly, but
mhm.
it is one of the first examples that we as humans, we always try to make us the life easier in some sense, and to be able to do more things, to be able to create new things also, so we don't waste time in like boring. How do you call it? The
Donkey work.
donkey work, right?
Yes.
Because if you cannot save time in those things, then you're not able to create new things,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
Yeah. So
that is one of
automate the
the
donkey work. So basically, like yeah, in this case, like the wheel, that's what it does. It moves things, right? So moving things from
yeah.
point A to point B. Similarly, in tech and how information moves from one point to the other,
Mm-hmm.
like there's always a human at some point in between. But how do you get the human to do more work that is more business related work, or like whether
Yeah.
it's customer service and so on, and to think more about innovation. So then you have the automation. So you have the from the wheel, you have the industrial revolution, and then now the revolution that we are in, it's more in the machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so anything from this point where we have the robotic process automation, I think
Mm-hmm.
we'll focus more on these 2 points and a little bit on the machine learning parts. So basically, how data moves from A to B to C to D, and there's always automation. Then we'll show like what is automation versus intelligent automation,
Yeah.
because you can always build, for example, if you use Excel, you can always automate things, right, for reporting, for example. But then we'll show that yes, you can do that, but at some point, unless things are perfect, unless your data is perfect, it kind of breaks. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we'll show that you can actually do a little bit more than that. You can do the classic automation, which a lot of individuals, whether you're a business analyst, you're probably doing a lot of that. You have incoming data, you see that a few times, then you automate the reporting. But where it fails is that like small discrepancies, they break the system. So we want to show just that part, basically.
It's like giving a room, right? We don't need. We probably won't have the perfect results, right? So, but we are gonna implement later, or we are gonna show later, how to be able to accept slightly not errors, but slightly give a room to make it to compensate the difference, and how can it help you to improve an algorithm, right?
Right. So
okay.
Like in this case, like we'll go through this case where we have an analyst, like a business analyst, but it's a small company, it's a startup, or maybe a department. So okay. Alice works by herself, so she does a lot of the data entry, but also data that comes from other systems. She's in charge of managing it all, and then eventually she produces a report. So based on the data that is coming in. In this case, if she deals with insurance companies, so she has to send the bill to the insurance companies. Okay. So just entering the regular data set, and every now and then you come up with these discrepancies. So maybe like whether it's like spelling or whether like different departments represent the same information but slightly differently. But because she's in charge of it all, she doesn't have to stress so much about it, because she knows, like in her mind, she knows when she sends out the report, she knows how to fix those things.
Yeah, because we are talking about a regular, like a very small kind of data amount, right? I think this can be done, for example, for one person. If you're dealing with, I don't know, 5, 10 patients.
Even if it's like, but like if the same person, like you're kind of like living with the data, you get to know it, you can fix those discrepancies on your own. So this is kind of like at a startup level where like automating things sometimes doesn't really make so much sense, because you're using too many resources for something that just happens like a few times. So basically the idea is that, okay, like she does the reporting, she sends it out, and then maybe has to go back and forth with someone else on the other side, like a third party, to fix any discrepancies. Okay? And so basically that's the thing. So a bunch of reports go out, and then the feedback loop, if anything needs to be fixing. So for the most part, Alice does data entry, data mapping, reporting, and dealing with the feedback loops. So the calls with billing departments. Now, as teams grow, you start bringing in someone else for the data entry. So we'll start with one Bob, and then we have multiple Bobs. So the Bobs, in this case, they do the data entry, and then so that they do the data entry and some of the data manipulation, and then Alice's job kind of shifts a little bit more into fixing the discrepancies and the feedback loop. So for the most part, Bob is going to do data entry and then some small data manipulation. And Alice's job now has no more data entry, but she does the mapping, the reporting, and the feedback loop. But now that you have Bob in the data entry, she has to take care of those because there's like certain ways that Bob is entering the data. So she actually has to she has to figure out what he meant when he entered certain data sets. After a while, she trains Bob, and then Bob, so basically the idea is that, okay, like she sees enough things, and then she goes to Bob, and then she says, okay, like I see you're entering the data this way, let's standardize things a little bit. So it's a combination of standardizing of the data, and then maybe even like creating some pull down menus for when you can, if something repeats a lot of times. And pretty much for the most part, like the problem is solved. The bigger problem is when you have a growing team and now you have multiple parties, you have multiple departments entering the data.
That is actually a problem that we want. It means that
it's a good problem. So it means that
it's a good problem to solve.
Yes. So it's a good problem to have, meaning that the departments are growing, and you have more customers, you have more clients, and now it's how do you scale Alice? So Alice, it's very difficult for Alice to go around and train every Bob, and sometimes she can, but sometimes she doesn't have access to them because the data can come from different departments, and she
Mm-hmm.
can't go to different departments. She can't go to a different clinic and telling people how to like standardize the data sets.
Yeah, she has other job to do also, so
Yeah.
other work to do. Sorry, so she cannot be spending like I don't know how many time like explaining every single person who is gonna be entering the data and things like that. Like, okay, this is what is happening, and this is what is happening, and so it's a lot of waste of time for her, and she has a lot of another things to do.
Yeah. So we see here that now like she's spending even like a lot more time like trying to train the people. So eventually she moves into the automation part. So there's some automation that she can do. For example, in this case, if you have so the way that it works is that on the right hand side, this is the ideal way of entering the data.
Okay.
So that's how when you communicate with a third party outside of your system, that is how you would send the data out. Everything else, they'll probably send it back to you. They'll ask you to fix it. So, and these are common ways on how Bobs would enter their data. And she makes a list of all of the different ways that she has seen. And then whenever it comes in, it automatically maps into the third, it maps into here.
Okay.
Okay, so that part is kind of it's automated. So she builds this. So whether it's in Excel or whatever it is, she can do these things. The problem comes that this system only knows if it's a perfect match. So this has to be a perfect match. It has to find a match in here and then map it into the final system.
Yeah, what you mean by perfect match is that for example, the blanks in the names are the same, the number of letters, the exact letters, the position,
so on. So everything has to be perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the problem in here is that when you have things that are almost perfect, but it doesn't do the match. So if you take it to this example, for example, this is only missing an N. But it cannot do the match.
So what happens there?
So the system breaks, so it doesn't recognize it. So now either Alice has to go back and deal with all of these data sets. But that also takes a lot of time. So now you have a lot of departments. You have, in the cases that we work, there's like millions and millions of rows.
Yeah, I remember what was more than 2 million.
Yeah,
like that.
And then it scales on like daily basis. So you have like millions and millions of rows, and then even if like 20 or 30% of the cases don't match, so then you're left with like hundreds of thousands of cases that you have to like match manually. But it's frustrating because you can see that it's almost a match, and you spend a lot of time. You spend a lot of time building the reference. You spend a lot of time building that automation part. So now you're kind of frustrated why it doesn't work. So she did build the algorithm, but now it's the next level. Like, how do you build an intelligent algorithm where if you look at something like where this one, for a human, it's easy that this, like you go through the list and you like obviously like this is the list that it should match with this one, right? And the way that you do it, like you're looking and then you see, okay, it's missing an N, and then maybe like this one is also missing something in here, it's missing an L. So that's, for a human, it's an easy problem, but for the algorithm, that's a hard problem. So that's when, so this is what, up to this point, a lot of companies, they do have a lot of these algorithms, but then because they break, then they don't adapt as new data comes in. You kind of almost like start giving up on them. So this is when we introduce intelligent algorithms. Okay, so we have the original algorithm, but the idea is like how do we make them more intelligent? So how do we quantify what Alice was doing the human Alice is doing when she's like figuring out how two things match.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's looking for like the letter arrangement. She's looking for the letters that match.
Yeah, it's
And
trying to reproduce what we do when we go and do it by hand, right? Like, oh,
yeah,
of course, Etna, this one, it doesn't have the T or the M, but it's clearly that it's going to be Etna and things like
and
that,
sometimes you just do it
right?
automatic. Like you look through, but now the idea is like how do we?
Yeah.
I think the role of the data scientist is usually like how do you quantify human knowledge? And this
Yeah.
is what we want to do in here. How do you quantify human knowledge? So how do you bring math into what the human is doing? So you have like if you observe someone, maybe they can't even explain to you why they do certain ways. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the very like some kind of like a bar for an intelligent algorithm is can you do as well as the human?
Yeah.
So what we introduced in here is this matching. So we have the data coming in. This is the data
Mm-hmm.
coming in, and this is the reference, and we have all of the data in this side, and we want to see how closely these things match. So we want to turn that into math. So we want to turn that into percentage. Like, is it
Okay.
91% or is it 78% match? And we can do that. We have the tools to do that, but it takes a little bit of work. Like, how do you feature the engine? How do you extract the features? Uh, but you can fix that problem. So the problem that you had where you had hundreds and thousands of rows, basically what you do is that what Alice was doing manually, you
Mm-hmm.
observe. Maybe you sit down with her to like figure out what she's doing, and then you can automate that knowledge. And the way that we do it is coming up with a vectorization that can convert the incoming data with the system, and it gives you a percentage of a match. The highest
Okay.
percentage, in this case, the highest percentage, so if it's like 92%, 91.4%, it's close enough to the real value, and then you automate that part.
Yeah.
And then you can
Okay.
decide on a confidence level. How confident do you want to be on the data, on the matching, so that you can actually move forward and automate that part. If you're not very confident, then you can maybe like spend some more time to fix the algorithm.
Yeah. Let's say that, for example, we have the incoming data and we set the confidence, I don't know, 85, 95%, for
Yeah.
example. So probably there is going to still be, at the end of the algorithm, some names that they don't qualify,
Mm-hmm.
right? So probably you have to go there and take care of that with like by looking at them personally, like
Yeah.
a human going there is, oh, what happened. But the thing is, the important thing here is how much can it be reduced, that
Yeah. And it makes a
human
big difference
homework,
because even
right?
like a 10% reduction in like the manual, you have hundreds and thousands of rows. It makes a big difference. You're
Yeah,
willing to accept some mistakes because sometimes it's better off. So there's always that curve, like how many mistakes you can accept, because then you're better off just dealing with those later on. So basically, the
exactly.
idea again is that in here we have these rows that don't find the match, but how do you take this, run it across the list, and find the best match? And then the best
Okay.
match, you move forward. So the best match
Yeah.
meaning the highest percentage. So in the case that we ran, it was 92% match. Everything
Okay.
else was about 80% or lower. And in this case, it does match, like that is the case, and then we're done with that.
Okay.
So basically that is, and as far as how this works, so this is when we deal with all of that. Yeah, so this is the case when you run it through all of them, and then you take the best match, and then you
Uh-huh.
move forward. Okay.
Okay.
So as far as how this works, ah, so the way that it works is a vectorization of the features. And we have a
Okay.
lot of other seminars where we spend a lot of time on how do you vectorize information.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do a seminar. I'm not sure if we're gonna do it this week or probably next week. That is about the how to extract the features and how to quantify in order to create the model, right?
But but the idea is like we want to the way that what we just showed, it's a vectorization of the information. So you take every letter and you map the words in that vector space. So in the case that we're showing in here, so this is the letter S, this is the letter B.
Yeah, in general, for example, if we really wanted to because visually is very difficult.
Yeah, so we only can show things in 2 dimensions in this case. So in 2 dimensions, we're showing, so we have these 3 words, Starbucks with a Z, and then a spider.
Yeah.
So in this case, so spider has just 1 S and 0 Bs. So it falls in here. And then Starbucks has 1 of each. So it has an S and a B. And this one has 2 S's and, wait. Is this correct?
No, I think
no, this is wrong. This should be here.
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
Yeah, because it has 2 S's and 1 B.
2 S's and 1 B, yeah.
So this should be in here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. So if it had 2 B's, for example, 1 S. So then what you do is that you map all of the information, and then you take those cosine similarities. So it's like you take cosine similarity, and then you figure out which 2 words are most similar, and that's the one that you move to the top of the list. Okay, so that's what we use a lot for. We use this all the time for whether it's information mapping, building recommender systems, and so on.
Yeah, because this one, it doesn't have to be applied just for words, right?
No. So
it's an algorithm that, in this case, we're using it for words, but it can be applied to, for example, in the recommender system, right?
Yeah. So the recommender system that we had with the cocktails.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we use in there.
Yeah.
And so that's basically what we like. One of the things that we wanted to cover in here. It's a small thing, but it's a very, very useful thing for companies that are growing, but you find that you're spending way too much time managing the data.
Yep.
So how to build more intelligent systems, so systems that adapt as your staff might change in the future.
Yeah, actually, what this kind of work, we have done it for revenue cycle companies. They have a lot of things going on in this sense, right? With the insurance companies and other kind of type of companies, and it's what you were telling before. In the case of a medium-sized company, already the amount of data that you have to be dealing with, it's a lot. It's millions of rows and I don't know, 30, 40, even 50 columns, right? So the databases are really, really big. And it seems, as you say, it seems like a very simple problem, but in the moment that you scale up to millions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is when the system begins to collapse.
Yeah.
Is when probably you need more people, but probably you cannot afford to hire more people, or you want to hire more people, but not exactly to be reviewing data, like data sets, like one by one, and that kind of stuff. It's more important to have other kind of work for the people, right?
Yeah.
And you cannot be wasting time on those things, mostly because it can be done this way. And yeah.
Yeah, so the reason that we wanted to cover this topic now is because so you have the new economic times where, so like, I don't know, like we're probably very likely in a recession. So if you were a company that right before this, like you were growing but now you're unsure about your staffing, for example, and how to allocate resources. So the first thing to do is like look into existing resources and how do you build intelligent systems as much as possible. so that they can adapt in as you grow. And then you can move your staff into more strategic positions.
Yeah, and of
And
course, it is what we are telling. I mean, this is just a very simple example, but it doesn't have to be just because some companies or some medium businesses can come to you and tell you, oh, but I don't deal with names or with strings or so why do I need
oh,
this?
that's just a
So
simple. So what a lot of the things that we've done is actually this is just one simple building bots. So a lot of the
yeah,
times, if you have different systems, how to build a bot that goes in to extract the
okay,
information and then brings the information to you locally and then builds a pipeline for decision making.
yeah, that is really important. It's always to improve and to not only to increase the revenue of a company, also to make things better inside the departments and so on, right?
Yeah. Also like
What's that?
something that we are introducing. So we have Byteflows Club. There's two branches.
Okay,
So the
okay,
two branches are one of the branches which is more for companies that are looking to implement these kind of solutions. So
okay,
whether they need a roadmap or whether they need a team to implement these solutions or advisory and strategy. We also have on the side, we have training and advisory for staff. So basically a lot of the projects that we work on, we we spend a lot of time reducing and making it easier for teaching. So like what are the top tools that you need if you are moving into this department, if you are moving in this direction? What are, because data science has been around for a long time now, but honestly, a lot of the things that you probably pick up along the way, you don't need a lot of things. So like what are the essentials? For example, what are the essentials to solve these kind of problems?
okay.
So those are like we have like a 30-day program. So you can go to the website to check out the memberships. So 30-day programs, both for strategy and also for training.
So, for example, if I'm the president or the director of a department and I want to get in contact with you, I go to the webpage, right? And either I can. One of the things in the membership, if I remember correctly, is that we have the seminars. In this case, they are going to be online because of the situation,
Mm-hmm.
the health situation. But in general, we can give you the seminar. It's like a couple, 3 hours or something like that. But we broke it down
Yeah.
in per week.
So both memberships are 30-day programs.
Yeah.
For the executive, you have a series of seminars
Okay.
with case studies, and then for each case study, we develop roadmaps. So basically, it's like,
Okay.
okay, here are some case studies for you. How does this apply for your business? Can we build a roadmap around it? Or if you already have something in mind, then we start with the strategy and the advisory right away. So that's
Okay. Perfect.
for more the director level, and then
Okay.
for the staff, for data analysts who want to implement those tools. So if you don't want, like maybe we can help with a roadmap, but maybe internally you have the staff capable of implementing those tools. Yep.
Okay, so it is there in our webpage is byteflows.com.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if you want to somebody wants to contact you to have like right away an advisory and all these things, also they can do it. They can send me an email,
Mm-hmm.
olivares at byteflows.com, and I'm gonna be here in the quarantine, trying to help you in everything we can. Yes, you can follow us in our social media accounts. We're going to be doing this kind of videos while the quarantine still goes. So we're going to try to help everybody out there, either with giving you ideas and how to solve any business problem, and also to give you moral support because we understand that can be really hard to be locked up in your house. So these are ashehu at byflows.com is your email,
Mm-hmm.
Andy, and my email is olivares at byflows.com. And I don't know, and advice for that people who doesn't know how to deal with the quarantine
To
and
work
doing
from
the
home.
home office, the
Well,
coffee
yeah.
machine.
So the coffee is definitely the automation. Yeah, something big. So I used to, even when I would work from home, like I would actually go outside, buy coffee, and then come in. But
Uh,
now that I can't really do that, Gina taught me the trick. Well, apparently, I don't know. Maybe people do this all the time, but like you never think about it. Like a lot of coffee makers, they have the programming thing that you can program it, and then in the morning it does the coffee automatically.
yeah,
I never thought about it, but since I started using it, it just feels so good. Like you wake up and the coffee is there, and it smells good. Like you have
yeah. You wake up with a nice smell all over the apartment,
yeah.
and you
I
don't have
usually
to.
I
It's
usually
a very
program it at
simple
like around
trick.
like 7 a.m.
Yeah,
So even like later on, like so when I wake up, it's already like it's the whole apartment. That's one. And then the other thing from like working from home, it's that very often you try. I think one is that the very first thing is okay. You don't pretend like you're in the office. So if you feel like taking a nap, you should take a nap. Uh, but the energy part is the thing that people miss. So like
yeah.
you're used to like having people around you. Um, I think the easiest thing to do that is like first thing in the morning to set up your calls. So whatever you have to do, like the very first thing, whatever your time is, whether it's like 8 or 9 or 9:30 a.m., it's set up all of the phone calls as soon as you're up.
Yes, it's
So
what we do actually.
yeah, so like that helps with the energy for the day. So like, cause sometimes you don't always know what you're going to be working on. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you need to bounce the ideas with each other.
Yeah,
So that should happen right as soon as you're up, basically. Like
yep,
for me, it's just like going, getting the coffee. You don't need to change. Just go right on, and just talk it out first, and then deal with, and then like at least like then you have like a list of like things that you know like you should be tackling and prioritizing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that is a very, because I have a lot of friends, right, that they are just to wake up and go to the office. We are been doing this for a while, so we are just to stay at home and working from home. So of course, at the beginning, it was really hard for me, at least, because I used to teach, for example. So instead of be teaching to 60 persons, now it's me in my apartment. But actually, yes, one of the things is wake up, coffee. You have to do it. There's no way around it. You have to do it. It's the coffee thing. If you do exercise, go and do it as early as you can. So when you begin to work, as Andy said, at 9 a.m. or something like that, you're ready. And yes, you have to talk to somebody. Normally, I talk to Andy every day when we begin the day. And you have to stop at some point. That is one of the things that I discovered eventually, like a year and a half ago. You have to stop, because if you are a workaholic and if you're working from home, it's really easy to stop at 10 p.m. Uh, but no, it's not healthy. Eventually, it's gonna catch you up, and you're gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
So
So
you
that,
have
and
to
then
take
the other,
rest.
yeah, and then on the tools. So there's also like a lot of people are just using a lot of tools. So there's like Slack, whether it's Monday.com or all of these things. My recommendation there is just don't. It's like the especially the group chat. It just gets very noisy
Yep.
and it's like it's real time and it becomes like a social media of its own.
Yeah. No. Then yeah.
Like there's too much noise. Like at the end of the day, like if the best way to manage projects really is to get on the phone, get on Skype
Yeah.
or whatever you're using.
Yeah,
That's
Skype
it.
is very useful for us. We always use it, and we can see each other sometimes in the pajamas, in these cases, with the quarantine. But I think it's really important to have the contact with somebody from work, like your boss or your colleagues, and to keep you going.
Yeah.
This is gonna end at some time, at some point for most of the people out there. You will be ready. I don't know, in a month, hopefully, or even less. But my belief is gonna be like at least a month that
It'll be
this
a
is gonna
while,
be
but
keep
yeah.
going. What?
Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while, and you have to get used to. So you have to make everything possible to set up a space to work. Don't stay at the bed on the bed, please.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
doesn't help.
Okay, Gina.
So okay, Andy, thank you so much, and we're gonna be posting in our social media when it's gonna be the next seminar. Please contact us if you have any doubts, questions, and please stay safe. This quarantine is gonna be really hard, but we need to do it in the U.S. and in Mexico too, and everywhere. Please be safe, and see you next time. Thank you, everybody.
All
Bye
right.
bye.